Oh, the boys are back in my crack. Oh, wait. This is what we're supposed to play. Oh, I always forget every time. There it is. Welcome to the DynamiteGizmo Podcast, everyone. Episode 298. 298, people. It's only a matter of time before we get to see Khamzat and Strickland duke it out in the octagon. Turn this down. This is the song that gives us a copyright claim every single time. Now, before we get into anything, I need to show everybody, what we've got going on here. Here is today's card. It's tradition around here to show you the card, but it's not tradition to show you my picks until later on. We will go over the entire card. This episode is everything and all things UFC 328 related. Khamzat, Strickland, Tatsuro, Taira, Joshua Van. We're going to go over it all. Can we turn this loud-ass music down? Oh, yeah. Just turn it off. Thank you. All right, but before we get into any of that stuff, there's all kinds of news. Just today alone, in terms of the White House card, all kinds of stuff's been going on. Let me take a looky here. That's kind of all, yeah. We're going to talk everything and all things UFC 328 related and the White House. The boys in the main events of the White House card, or should I say the freedom fights? I don't want to call it that. I've been calling it the White House card this entire time, as has everybody else. Ilia Topuria, Justin Gaethje, Alex Pereira, Ciryl Gane. They're all at the White House today. They were there, talking to Mr. Trump himself, facing off in front of the White House. There's a lot. We need this. I'll show you here. Here's Ilia Topuria, Ilia Tatsuro, facing off against the Gaethje. Now, to be completely honest, when I first saw this shit, I thought it was AI. And of course it's not going to load. Of course it's not going to load. Why would it? Oh, there it is. There it is. I've got it. I've got it. It's loading now. Okay, let's have a look together. Topuria, Gaethje, Tatsuro. Interesting. I wonder if I'll get copyright claimed for that. Probably. Then we got the other gentleman. Alex Pereira. Ciryl Gane. Ooh-wee. Ooh, Cyryl's got some nice glasses. Alex is gonna punch those glasses right off his fucking face, dude. Right off his goddamn face. Look at this. Okay? Everybody have a good looky-loo. Look at these guys. Oh, they both got belts. Oh, you two don't. Oh, Alex has his eyes closed. Can we take a new shot, please? Fucking thank fuck. Wonderful. And there's more. There's more. They were talking. They were giving speeches at the White House itself. I'm not going to play everyone, but I'll play a couple clips here. It was a lot of Trump talking. Tatsuro had some things to say, but let me just get the clips up here. My computer is slow as a shithole. Okay. First, we got this clip here of Donald Trump speaking his mind.
Here's a picture. I think a lot of people haven't seen this yet.
I've seen it.
I'll give you that. I think you'll probably be able to do okay with it.
Wow. The media's gonna go crazy.
Not bad, right?
Your
Championship belt. Dana White was here last night. Did you know that? He was here last night. He loves this guy. He loves all of them. Here's another one.
He loves them all, dude.
This is another. They're going all the way out, all online. It's
wow.
People invited. Our country is invited to this. It's free.
How the
Here's
fuck
a
is it
picture.
free?
I
That's
think
what
a
I
lot
don't
of
understand. How the frick is it free, dude? They've got so many seats and it's free. Where are they getting the funding for this?
And why do you wanted to give the toughest test to you, to friend of
To
you?
which?
To friend of you. You said he's friend of you.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
you wanted to give him the
You know, that's what I want. I do want to give. I want to give the hardest test. Is right. We're going to give the hardest test, and actually, each one of you are fighting your hardest test. I think, right?
Yeah.
He just says stuff, dude. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. But that is funny that Tatsuro would say that. Why do you want to give your hardest test to your favorite guy here? He knows he's going to cream him. Justin Gaethje's getting creamed. And then there's one other thing that was announced. There's so many clips. Honestly, there's too many to show on this episode. Hey, Oliver, you're not allowed to lick, my friend. Did you know that you're not allowed to lick? I tell you this every day. Have a look at this. UFC White House belt. Didn't I say there was going to be a White House belt? Didn't I fucking say it? Everything I predicted almost damn near came true. And I said there was going to be a White House belt. But the thing is, what are they going to do with this belt? Who gets it? Is it just like a symbol? Or is it like, do the winners of the fights get this? That'd be kind of cool. But it's like, does every single winner on that card get one of these belts? Or is it only the current champions? And if it is the current champions or whoever becomes the champion, they're gonna keep their regular weight class belt and this? Is that what's gonna happen? I don't even know. I'm curious now. Did Trump say? Trump wouldn't even know, even if he did say. We do get an artist series poster for UFC 328. We're moving on past the White House stuff. Because, again, if you want to see any of the White House stuff, it's all online. There's so much of it. In terms of the interviews in the Oval Office, there's nothing really worth listening to. They're kind of just saying the same generic bullshit all over again. But if you want to see it, go check it out. We're going to step back into UFC 328 right now. We have ourselves an artist series poster. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Okay? But this is the one this time. And no, it's not AI. Thank the Lord. It's cool. It's good. It's good. It's not the greatest I've ever seen, though. I've seen much better. And, of course, this Thursday and then this Friday, we're going to have press conferences. Thursday was going to be 328's press conference. And then Friday, we're going to have the press conference for the White House event. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about it anymore, but that's the case. All right. But the press conference tomorrow for UFC 328 is only going to feature the main and co-main event, which is kind of shitty. I was hoping they'd have the full main card, because there's lots of people on there who could bark their little mouth off. Specifically, Joaquin Buckley. All right, but we're not going to get that, unfortunately. And we got Conor McGregor on the mic leading up to this event this weekend. And he had this to say. Whoops. I don't want to show those guys. Very excited for the Newark, New Jersey UFC card with my 185-pound UFC title on the line. Very funny, Conor. Very fucking funny. Conor McGregor thinks he's going to get a belt again. That'll never, ever happen. That'll never happen, Conor McGregor. I'm sorry, my friend. You know I love you. But guess what? You ain't going to get what you want. I'm telling you, brother. You ain't going to get it. Now let's jump into our first segment of the day. But before we do, remember, Later on, we are going to go over this fight prediction sheet. I create these sheets for every numbered event, every fight night, everything UFC. If you want one of these sheets, they are available for free. Click the link in the description, download it, print it off, and at the end of this episode, we will go over my fight predictions for every single fight on the card. But let's jump into our first segment of the day. We're going to talk about Sean Strickland, dude. One half of the main event. The former UFC middleweight champion going up once again to reclaim his once-owned title against Khamzat Chimaev. Now, generally speaking, on paper, Sean Strickland is considered a pretty boring fighter to watch. And honestly, even when you actually watch him fight, his extremely defensive style isn't always the most exciting. But when it comes to promoting fights, he is one of, if not the most exciting fighter on the entire UFC roster. And this fight is huge, not just because it's Sean Strickland, but because of who he's going up against. But before we get into all of that, let's quickly run through Sean Strickland's history, shall we? Before the UFC, Sean fought in an organization called King of the Cage. He went pro in 2008 and went on a 12-fight undefeated streak up until 2013. In April of 2012, he claimed the King of the Cage middleweight title against Brandon Hunt. Then he unified the title in December of that same year and went on to defend it 3 more times, but before eventually getting signed to the UFC. He won his first 2 UFC fights at middleweight, then decided to drop down to welterweight. His first fight at welterweight was against Santiago Ponzinibbio, where he lost by decision. He then fought his next 7 fights in a row at welterweight, even facing Kamaru Usman at one point, before eventually moving back up to middleweight, which turned out to be a very smart move. At middleweight, he picked up wins over guys like Brendan Allen, Uriah Hall, Jack Hermanson. Then in 2022, he had one of the most notable performances against none other than Alex Pereira. And Alex Pereira knocked him out in round 1 with a left hook, as he usually does. And after that, Sean lost to Jared Cannonier, then picked up wins against Nasruddin Imavov and Abus Magomedov. Now this is where things start to get a little interesting. Dricus du Plessis was originally supposed to fight Israel Adesanya in September of 2023, but due to a foot injury, he couldn't compete. So Sean Strickland stepped in and got the biggest opportunity of his career. He fought Israel Adesanya for the title and won via decision, becoming the new middleweight champion. Immediately after that, he had to defend the belt against Dricus. He lost that fight via split decision, but a lot of people, myself included, would argue that Sean actually won that fight. He then picked up a win over Paulo Costa, and eventually got a rematch with Dricus for another shot at the title. But going into that fight, it was revealed that Sean was still recovering from a scapula injury from a dirt bike accident. And it was pretty clear he had a staph infection on his arm as well. He was very compromised going into that fight, and because of that reason, he lost again. Which brings us to his most recent fight, Anthony Hernandez, also known as Fluffy. Now, Fluffy was on an 8-fight win streak going into that matchup. A lot of people believed he was next in line for a title shot, especially if he beat Sean Strickland. But he didn't stand a chance. Sean looked incredible in that fight. Honestly, better than he has in a long time, if not ever. And he finished Fluffy in round 3 via TKO, which is what earned him his current title fight against Khamzat Chimaev over Imavov. And that leads us into what's going to help Sean the most in this fight, which is his defense. Sean has incredible defense, not just in striking, but in his takedown defense as well. That's really what defines his style, and honestly why some people are calling him boring. He defends constantly. That's what he does. That's what he's known for. And then capitalizes on the moment to strike. We don't get to see much of his wrestling or grappling because he's so elite at shutting down takedowns and getting back to his feet where his striking shines. And out of every fighter on the roster, Sean has a reputation for sparring more than anyone, while also getting hit the least. That's why people label him as just a striker. And don't get me wrong, he absolutely is one of the best strikers, but his grappling is almost hidden behind how good his defense really is. And that's why this fight is so interesting. A lot of questions are going to be answered. Can Khamzat take Sean down? And if he does, can Sean prove how good he actually is on the ground? Because the way Sean fights, he forces his opponents to fight his fight. And if you can't take him down, you're stuck standing, dealing with his constant forward pressure the entire time with jabs and teeps. Another thing to consider is his focus. Sean is locked in for the entire fight. As crazy as he is outside of the octagon, when it's fight night, nothing distracts him. You can literally see it in his face from the moment he starts his walkout. Pay attention to this. Now, speaking of crazy, that brings us to the other side of this fight. Sean Strickland as a person. Because this isn't just about what happens in the cage this weekend. The build-up to this fight is what has been really selling it. Sean and Khamzat actually trained together briefly a few years ago, but over time that turned into real tension, and now they genuinely don't really like each other. And the difference here is neither of them are just putting on an act. This isn't fake trash talk. It's pretty real. And we've only seen that kind of genuine hatred a handful of times in the UFC. And every time we have, it's led to some of the most iconic moments in the sport. We don't know what's going to happen at the press conference, the face-off, the ceremonial weigh-ins, that is, even if they do have a face-off. Even just them being in New Jersey leading up to the fight, how much security is going to be needed? And we've already seen that there has been extra security involved. Because we've already seen Khamzat go after guys like Nate Diaz, Kevin Holland, Ian Gary, and even Joaquin Buckley. It doesn't take much for things to shift from one face to another with Khamzat. And with the way Sean talks about Khamzat, there's no doubt in my mind that something could go down before the fight begins. And if you haven't heard what Sean's been saying, just go look it up. Any interview, you'll find it instantly. But at the end of the day, this fight comes down to a few key factors: experience, takedown defense, and mental warfare. All things that Sean has mastered. And if he can use them properly, he absolutely has a path to winning this fight. Now, this whole time leading up to this, everyone has been speculating, everybody has been talking and saying things about Sean Strickland and Khamzat and whether or not there's going to be such a massive brawl between these guys before the fight even begins that it might even cancel the fight. But we've been seeing media, and we even had the media day press conference today, and they both seem pretty chill. Leading up to it, there was a lot of shit talk almost exclusively from Sean Strickland. And virtually nothing from Khamzat. He's very quiet and humble. So it might not be as exaggerated as we expected it to be. But let me ask you this. Do you think Sean actually stands a chance? Is there any way he could win this fight? Or is it absolutely going to be Khamzat Chimaev? Or as Michael Bisping likes to say, Chimaev. Now, according to the internet, there is not going to be a Paramount Faceoff. Here's a full violence post here. No Paramount Faceoff. Understandable. I don't think they should do that anyway. It's really cheesy and unnecessary. Here's a video of Sean Strickland hitting some pads leading up to this fight, and he looks incredible. He looks solid as a fucking rock. Ow! I love how the video just starts. Ow, 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 ow. That hurts. Listen to that snap crackle, dude. It's just a cracking. It just cracks. He cracks it up. I do have one clip here of Sean yesterday talking some smack towards Khamzat, but this is what he's been doing all week. But when people actually bring up Khamzat and say, is there real beef? Do you think you guys are actually going to fight?
Sean, are they going to let...
Well, this is him talking about the face-offs, I guess. He always says no. Sean doesn't think they're going to fight before the fight. Sean isn't going to instigate anything. Khamzat might, especially if he has guys with him.
Sean, are they gonna let you guys face off? And do you want to get like in this guy's face? And like,
dude,
does that sound fun to you?
Dude, here's the thing. I'm a grown ass man, dude. You know, like I shut the fuck up, you shut the fuck up. We could go look at each other for 2 seconds, but it's like, you know, I mean, this guy's a fucking dog. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Well, I'll tell you what. If he doesn't have 10 of his friends, it should be fine. If he has 10 of his little Chechen friends, it won't be fine.
Sean, are they gonna?
So I actually think, like we all speculated, this is going to be crazy. It's going to be hyped as shit. They're going to be screaming at each other and yada, yada, yada. I actually think it's going to be completely tame and calm, especially their demeanors leading up to this. The expectations were way too high. It's not going to be what we all thought it was going to be. But then yesterday, Khamzat also released some sparring footage back in the day when he was lightly sparring with Sean Strickland, which I have here as well. Which doesn't really show much, but what it does show, well, it's light sparring, but this is kind of how it's going to look. This is kind of what we're going to see for a moment, at some point probably this weekend. But this is just light sparring, okay? So this is a glimpse of what it'll look like, because you know Khamzat's going to shoot at some point. He's going to shoot for a takey. All right. I think we're going to jump into the next segment. We're going to jump into the next segment. We're going to have to talk about Khamzat Chimaev, who is the current middleweight champion of this world. I remember when Sean Strickland lost the title to Dricus du Plessis. And I said to myself, Khamzat is going to be the next guy to hold that belt. I don't know why I said it at that time. It was just one of those thoughts that stuck in my head. And sure enough, it happened. Not only did Khamzat Chimaev win the title, but the man is still undefeated overall. Currently sitting at 15-0. And the craziest part is, the only time he has ever seen rounds 4 and 5 was in his last fight against Dricus when he claimed the title. Before that fight, a lot of people made the argument that Khamzat had bad cardio, and that if he was going to win fights, he needed to get the job done early. Oh, my neck. People would use the Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman fights as examples. And although it did look like he was slowing down in those fights, he still got the job done. Close fights, absolutely, but he still won. And nowadays he's training at the training lab with Coach Cal, who is apparently an absolute expert when it comes to cardio conditioning and sports science. Not apparently, he is. Oliver, quit it. But honestly, I'd make the argument that Khamzat always had decent cardio. People just never got to truly experience it because most of his fights didn't go long enough. Sure, he got tired in some earlier fights, but who doesn't when you're moving around that much? That's not abnormal at all. And honestly, you should get tired. If you're not getting tired, you're not trying hard enough. And when you look at Khamzat's career, the names he's fought are pretty insane, dude. Guys like Li Jing Liang, Gilbert Burns, Kevin Holland, Kamaru Usman, Robert Whittaker, and DDP. One of the biggest fights that never happened was the Leon Edwards fight, which got canceled 3 separate times back-to-back because of different COVID issues. And then, of course, there was Nate Diaz's retirement fight, where Khamzat showed up 7.5 pounds overweight. And despite all the cancellations throughout his career, whether it was due to health issues or his own mistakes, he still remained a dominant force and climbed all the way to the title. There were definitely moments where people started losing confidence in him, not because they doubted his skill, but because he was becoming unreliable. Even after the Edwards and Diaz situation, he still dealt with health issues before the Whittaker fight, and that matchup had to be rescheduled as well. But eventually he came through and proved he was still capable of becoming a champion. Now, when you actually look at Khamzat's fighting style, it's honestly hard to imagine somebody beating this man. His pressure is insane. The guy is an absolute master of wrestling and grappling. He can literally shoot from across the octagon and take someone down at almost any moment in the fight. And even though his striking can absolutely do damage, a lot of the time it's really just there as a distraction. He throws strikes to create openings so he can explode in, grab a hold of you, and take you down before you even realized what happened. And once he gets you to the ground, there really isn't much you can do. Out of his 9 UFC fights, the majority of them ended by submission. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call him a submission artist, but he is absolutely a grappling and wrestling artist. Honestly, he may even be the best wrestler in the sport right now. And just like Strickland, Khamzat also gets criticized for his style. Some people find it boring. So what's interesting here is that we have 2 fighters who individually some people would consider boring stylistically on both ends. But when you put them together, because of who they are, how they fight, and the genuine hatred between them, this becomes one of the most hyped fights we've had all year. We already know the things Sean has said about Khamzat, but what about what Khamzat has said about Sean? Honestly, not a whole lot. At least not yet. Because Khamzat isn't really the type to go off during interviews or behind someone's back. Khamzat handles things face to face. And so far during interviews, he's actually been pretty calm, quiet, and very soft-spoken. We haven't really seen these two face to face yet since the fight was announced. And right now, Khamzat looks composed. But I don't really think we can fully judge that yet, because we've seen him snap before with Holland, Diaz, Ian Gary, Burns, Paulo Costa. The second he feels disrespected directly to his face, his entire demeanor changes. He doesn't really care what Sean says in interviews. Look at how calm he's been in response so far. But once we get the press conference, once they're walking past each other backstage, once we get the ceremonial weigh-ins, that's when things could possibly explode. And if it is going to explode, that is where it will happen. And I really want people to pay attention to what we have here. Because honestly, it's not even just the fight itself that's exciting, it's the build-up. Sure, the fight absolutely has potential, we all know that, but what happens leading up to the fight might honestly be just as entertaining. This is something the UFC has been missing for a long time. We rarely get this kind of genuine tension anymore. Back in the day, the press conferences were almost as exciting as the actual fights. That build-up was a huge part of what made these fights feel massive. And with this matchup, we finally have that feeling again. Now, when it comes to the actual fight itself, the second this fight got announced, my immediate reaction was, well, of course Khamzat's going to win. How could he not? Because when you look at the middleweight rankings, there really aren't many guys that seem capable of dealing with Khamzat's level of wrestling. Maybe someone like RDR, but even then, who knows? Strickland versus Khamzat is an amazing fight for a lot of reasons. But the biggest one is the personal beef between them. This honestly feels like one of those fights that either ends really early or drags out into a slower decision similar to the Dricus fight if things go Khamzat's way. And honestly, based purely off gut feeling, that's kind of where my head is at right now. Now, if Khamzat wins this fight, he's already talked about potentially moving up to light heavyweight afterward, which could potentially set up a future fight with Carlos Ulberg, and then maybe Yuri Prohaski. Especially considering Khamzat tends to be inactive between fights, and Ulberg is expected to be out for a while with injury anyway, which would give that matchup time to build naturally, unless they do an interim title. And when you really look at Khamzat's career, the guy has never been defeated, not inside the UFC, not outside the UFC. So just imagine how massive it would be if Sean Strickland became the first man to end that streak. But honestly, I don't know if Sean can do it. I really don't. Talk is cheap, and Sean does a lot of talking. And right now, I honestly don't know if there's anybody at middleweight, or even light heavyweight for that matter, capable of beating Khamzat. The only way I could see it happening is through some sort of crazy fluke situation similar to Van versus Pantoja. Now let me ask you this. Do you think anybody in the UFC can realistically stop Khamzat Chimaev right now? Or is he on his way to becoming one of the most dominant champions we've ever seen? Yeah. Ooh, baby, I love the way. Every day. Now, according to this article on the internet, Khamzat Chimaev is almost untouchable in the first round. In his 9 UFC fights, he has been hit just 24 times, 18 of which were by Gilbert Burns alone. 5 of the 9 failed to land a shot on Chimaev in the first round, one of which being Dricus du Plessis. 24 total strikes landed on Khamzat Chimaev in the first round of all 9 UFC fights. What a wonderful stat! What a wonderful stat. Now, we talked about Khamzat and Sean Strickland potentially looked at as boring fighters. And Khamzat himself is aware of this. Of course he is. How couldn't he be? And because of this, he had something to say.
Maybe even a quick finish.
Yeah, for sure I need to finish him. Otherwise people start to calling me like, hey, what is this? Hur säger man den här? Att det inte är tråkig. Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah, boring fight.
Do you feel like you need to finish him? Maybe.
I don't even know what he said there. But I guess he's aware of the fact that he's a boring fighter. And then Robert Whittaker, the guy who got his face absolutely crushed by Khamzat, also made himself a prediction. And most people might agree with him. I don't know.
Having been there in there with Chimaev, having seen what Chimaev can do once he gets his hands on him, and he will, because he shoots from so far away, and he commits wholeheartedly in it. He will get you to the mat. It's what happens after. Seeing that he has the cardio to be able to do that for 5 rounds as well, mate, it's gun to my head. Chimaev's going to run him over.
Yeah. It's so easy to feel that way instinctually right off the bat. Khamzat versus Sean, of course. Of course. How could Sean win this fight? But it could happen.
How this started, I will give you.
So Sean here is talking about how his initial beef started with Khamzat, where it originated from.
How this started, I will give you factually how this started. There's a guy named John out of Colorado, really nice kid, came very young. I think he's on the Contenders now. But we wrestled, and I may have got the better of him wrestling. I took a picture with him. Really nice kid, by the way. Really nice kid. He's going to do very well in the UFC. And I made a joke, and I said, "Oh, I thought you'd wrestle better for a Chechen." And it was a joke because he's a friend. Anyways, Chimaev, we had this like group chat. Chimaev sent me a message and said, pretty much called me a piece of shit. Told me he's going to kill me, some crazy shit. So I told Chimaev to simply go yourself. And I said, Chimaev, I will meet you at this location at 5 p.m. The next thing he says is, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding." And from that moment, I just knew you're a coward. Like from that moment, I knew you have lack of dignity. You're just not a man, dude. How this started.
Now listen to this now. I think Khamzat legitimately misunderstood. I mean, Khamzat speaks English, but if you look at his tweets all the time, the guy can barely write a sentence. So I genuinely think Khamzat misunderstood what Sean Strickland said, and he took it as Sean Strickland being offensive in whatever way, because that's nothing new for Sean. But then Sean's just as bad. He snapped back and he's like, well, fuck you, I'll fight you. But then when Khamzat was like, oh, it was a misunderstanding, Sean doesn't want to accept that. So I feel like that's on Sean. What else should I show here? The UFC has unveiled official renderings. You want to see the renderings of the UFC card, of the White House card? You want to see what they look like? Have a look. It's all AI. But this is what it's going to look. This is the ellipse. This is where the 80,000 people will sit. And there will be screens everywhere. They can all watch. Oh, man. This is so crazy. I can't believe this shit is happening, dude. Literally the next main event, the next numbered event is going to be at the White House next month, dude. It's happening next month. It feels like just yesterday it was announced, and it was just like a twinkle in our eye, and we're like, is this even going to happen? And now it's here. Next month, dude. Alex Pereira, Ciryl Gane, Justin Gaethje, Ilia Topuria, Sean O'Malley, Eamon Zahabi, Diego Lopez, and the others are going to be fighting at the fucking White House, dude. What if there's some sort of attack? What if Alex Pereira dies because like a terrorist? I don't even want to think about that. That's horrendous, dude. All right? Oh my God. Anyway, before we get into my fight predictions here, this is whenever Yaroslav Amosov fights, we have to show this clip. Like we have to. Dude's an amazing fighter. He's like, what is it? I gotta look at his record. I have it right here. 29-1. Okay, and he's very new into the UFC. Former Bellator champ. Got drafted into the Ukraine war. And in the middle of his duty, he went back to his house to recover something. It's his Bellator belt.
Байрактар. Второй раз забрал пояс.
Маленький, из пасен.
It's just such a badass fucking clip right there. Like, that's wonderful. This man. Oh my God. 29-1. Right? Is that what I said? 29-1. That's his record, dude. Insane. Oh, this weekend's going to be great. Okay, there's some other stuff I could show. You know, Alex Pereira looking at the cover of the UFC 6. And Alex Pereira is also doing some training with Talis and Taira, which is interesting. But anyway, we don't need to get into any of that. Let's get into my fight predictions, okay? Here is the fight prediction sheet. Okay? Let's zoom into number 10. Brady versus Buckley, just to show you what's going on here. Okay? We've got all the fights throughout the night. You've got the weight class, the names, their fight record. You've got their Vegas betting odds, their nickname, pictures of the fighter, country of origin flag, and their rank up here. Before the night begins, you check off pick for the fighter you think is going to win, and then whoever wins, you check off winner. At the very end of the night, you go all the way down to the bottom here, mark your score at a 13, rate the card, how did it meet your expectations. Along the right-hand side, we have multiple different facts about the fights and fighters, the location in which it's being held, the poster, and there's little note sections at the bottom. So if you want this fight prediction sheet, it's completely free. Click the link in the description. And right now we are going to go over my fight predictions. So let me just get up Tapology here. Tapology. Actually, let me do UFC 328. Here we go. Okay. Dink dong, doopa dee doo. So the first fight of the night, we have Clayton Carpenter versus, what's his name? Jose Ochoa. All right, so Clayton Carpenter, 8-2 overall. USA motherfucker. He has been in the UFC since 2023. Won his Contender Series fight against Charez. He was undefeated professionally. Before that, won his first 2 fights in the UFC, got himself performance of the night bonus on his second fight, and then he has since been on a 2-fight losing streak to Ulanbekov and Filho. We've seen Pastor last weekend. Okay? And the guy he's going up against is from, what is this, Peru? Yeah. He's 8-2. Are they both 8-2? They're both 8-2. All right? Now he got his Contender Series fight canceled. Debuted against Loney Kavanaugh. Unfortunate for him. Had a win over Cody Durden. And then his most recent fight was a loss against Almabayev. So these guys are pretty closely matched. Okay? And again, even with him outside the UFC, completely undefeated with 1 no contest. They're basically the same person. Okay, so this was a tough choice. The only difference is Jose here is a knockout boy. Clayton Carpenter, more of a submission boy. So based off those factors, I went ahead and went with Jose because he's also the favorite in this fight. For some reason, I thought I would have went for Carpenter. This literally could go any way, and right now that I'm thinking about it, I should go for Carpenter. And you know what? I'm going to switch my vote here. I'm going to go for Carpenter. Okay, next up we got Susurkayev versus Santos. Now, there's not a whole lot of thinking we got to do here. Susurkayev is undefeated, and he's a big favorite, and he's a training partner to Khamzat. And if you remember, back on UFC 319, that is when he debuted just 4 days after his Contender Series fight. The shortest turnaround time ever. Okay? He had that crazy body kick in round 1. Then he debuted just a few days later, 4 days later, on UFC 319, which was the card that Khamzat got himself the title against Dricus du Plessis, and he went out there and won. And then he fought again on UFC 322 back in November, my favorite card last year, and he got the win in round 3 against Eric McConaughey, right hook. And he was looking really cocky in that fight. And in the beginning of it, he had his back against the cage with his hands behind his back. He was looking too cocky, which I didn't like. And there was a few moments where things looked a little sketchy, but he pulled through. Now he's going up against Jordan Santos, okay, who was 11-2. So he's no slouch. He's coming off a win against Danny Barlow. Before that, he lost to Ozzy Diaz, and before that, he had his Contender Series fight. And he only lost once before that. So he's a decent motherfucker, okay? He had a middleweight championship in Thunder Fight. Whatever organization that, is. Okay, so, but even with all that being said, it's hard to vote against Susurkaev, so of course I'm going to go for him. Next up, Sabatini versus Gomez. All right, let's pull these gentlemen up. Oh, my exes live in Texas. So Pat Sabatini, 21-5, likes to submit. He's only ever had one knockout ever. He's 8-2 in the UFC. He's kind of all over the place. UFC, CFFC. He's back and forth between the two. His only losses in the UFC were against Diego Lopez and Damon Jackson. Not too shabadosh. So he has lots of fights, a lot of submission or grappling matches recently as well. So that'll play into his favor. Mr. Gomez here, the Jaguars, 15-3. Now he likes to knock guys out or win by decision. It's kind of a 50-50 for him, but he's 5-1 in the UFC. Nothing really notable on him. I don't even remember who I picked, but let's take a look together. I went with Sabatini, so Sabatini's also the favorite here. Okay, then we've got Roman Kopylov versus Tulio. I forget his first name. So let's take a look at these gents. Don't remember who I picked for this either. All right, Roman Kopylov, 14-5-0. He's 35. And you would think, being a Russian boy, that he would have a good chunk of submissions, if not the majority of his wins by submission. But he has never, ever won by submission. 12 wins by knockout, 2 wins by decision. He is 6-5 in the UFC. He's coming off 2 losses. Now, they were to Gregory Rodriguez and Paulo Costa, so if you're going to lose, those are the guys to lose to. And also Anthony Hernandez he lost to, but that was early on. Okay, before that he was undefeated, had no amateur fights, so he's not too bad of a mofo. Has a win over Cesar Almeida. But then if we look at Marco Tulio, Brazilian, 31 years old, 14-2. He's coming off a loss to Christian Leroy Duncan. This is when Christian had that nice spinning vac fist. That was a good knockout. Which fight night was this? Oh, that was the Bonfim Brown one. Yeah, okay. But yeah, before that, damn near undefeated. So for this, I went with Kopylov. Interesting. I could see Tulio winning this, especially being the favorite that he is. I might have to switch that. Now look who we got. The classic. The man who has the most fights on the UFC ever. Jim motherfucking Miller. 38-19-0. Going against Jared Flash Gordon, who is 21-8-0. Now Jared's the favorite here. That's usually the case when there's a Jim Miller fight nowadays. Jim Miller is not only has the most fights on the UFC roster, but he's also like the second most oldest person on the UFC in the UFC right now at 42 years old, tied with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Majority of his wins come by submission. He's had 7 KOs, 10 decisions. But if you look at there's no point in scrolling all the way through his career because he's had so many fights. But he doesn't stay on big losing streaks for a while. He had the 4-fight losing streak in a row here, but it's usually 1 or 2, and then he's back on track here. Lost to Bobby Green, won to Damon Jackson, lost to Chase Hooper. Who knows? He might turn around here. Now, Jared Gordon is 37. He's not too young himself, 21-8-0. He's also coming off a loss. Before that, a win. Loss, win, loss, win, loss. He's also all over the place. This could go either way. He's not known for his submissions. He's only got 2 of them. Majority of his wins are by decision or knockout. Now, normally I would go with Jared Gordon here, but because I want to see Jim Miller take this W here, I think he can still do it, and that's why I'm going for him. This is going to be a banger. We got Grant Dawson versus Rebecca. Now, we remember, or you might not remember, Rebecca on UFC, what was it, 318? No. What am I talking about? No, what the fuck was it? Don't remember. He had that fight against Oralby. And it was a crazy war. One that I'll never forget. Grant Dawson here is 23-3-1. Coming off a loss against Manuel Torres, who has a great fight coming up against who does he got? Oh yes, Rafael Fiziev. Anyway, look at Grant Dawson. He's only lost to Bobby Green and Manuel Torres. Bobby Green's on this card too. Matus Rebecca. It was on UFC 308. That's what it was. Now he's lost 3 of his last 4, but that one against Oralby, he did win, but it was close. This is a tough one because Grant can submit like a motherfucker. And Rebecca can too, but is he going to? I don't know. Is this going to be a war? I hope so. I went with Grant Dawson on this. Now Alvarez versus Amosov. Now listen, I'm going for Amosov, however you say it. But Yoel Alvarez, no slouch either, my friend. Why don't we take a look? Whoopsie daisy. Yoel Alvarez, 23-3-0 from Spain. Just a handsome young gentleman. Okay? He lost his debut into the UFC against Damir Ismagulov. Okay? Then he went on a 4-fight win streak and then lost to Arman Sarukian. Fair enough. And then is currently now on another 4-fight win streak. His last fight was against Vincent Luque, and he beat the poop out of him. But Yaroslav, the dude doesn't lose. The last time he lost was when he lost his Bellator title back in 2023, but immediately after that, he fought in CFFC and then got his debut into the UFC and won in round 1 against Neil Magny. So I'd imagine that he's going to win against Yoel Alvarez, and I hope he does because the dude deserves it. And then, of course, we got Atiba Gauthier versus Ozzy Diaz. Atiba Gauthier is a minus 1,000 favorite. He's 10-1. We know the Gauthier, okay? Ozzy Diaz is 10-3. They have very similar records. It's hard not to vote for Atiba Gauthier. But let's just look at what we got going on here. Thibaut Gauthier, 24. Jesus Christ, dude. He's only 24. I had no idea he was that young. Only wins by knockout. Not only that, but he wins by knockout in round 1. Except for his last fight. It was a unanimous decision win. And I was worried he wasn't going to win at all, to be completely honest. But he did take it. But as you can see, okay, he had one round 2 knockout. But other than that, it's all round 1s. The guy punches like crazy. He's a hard-hitting machine. Ozzy Diaz, you know, he wins by knockout as well. But he's not as, he's definitely got more experience. Has some losses. But, you know, I'm not saying he can't win. But, I mean, come on, it's a Thibaut Gauthier. How are you going to go against him? Rising prospect. Someone we all love. Now we're on the main card. Jeremy Stephens is back, and he's going up against Bobby Green. Now, Jeremy Stephens was the guy on that famous Conor McGregor card where Conor McGregor was talking shit, and then Jeremy Stephens pipes up and goes, "I'm the hardest hitting 145er up here. When I hit guys, they stay down." And he was talking shit, and then Conor McGregor turns around and goes, "Who the fuck is that guy? Who the fuck is that?" So that became who Jeremy Stephens became known as that guy. Now, Jeremy Stephens is old. Bobby Green is old. They have plenty of fights under their record. Jeremy Stephens is 29 and 22. Bobby Green is 34 and 17, 1-1. Not particularly a fan of either of these guys. I mean, they're good. They're OGs. Bobby Green pisses me off when I watch him fight. I can't stand the way he keeps his hands down. But he sometimes gets the job done. It was nice seeing him get knocked out by Rufy. But since then, he's been doing all right. Whereas Jeremy Stephens, on the other hand, the guy's kind of all over the place, and he's had so many fights as well. It's really hard. I want Jeremy Stephens to win simply because I don't want Bobby Green to win. But if you look at Jeremy Stephens' record, you know, he's won in bare knuckle. But then when he came back to fight Mason Jones on short notice, he lost. And then he lost again to Mike Perry in bare knuckle. But whenever he actually fights, whether it's in the UFC or PFL, loss. Had that one win, but it was a split decision. Loss. No contest. Loss. Win. Loss. Win. Loss. You know, and now we're way back in 2011 at this point. So, man, the dude's 39 years old. Bobby Green, also 39. But Bobby's coming off a 2-fight win streak, you know. And he doesn't have long losing streaks either. So it's tough, man. Like, I want to vote against Bobby Green, but I think he's going to win against Jeremy Stephens, so I have to vote for him. And we got Brady and Buckley, two guys I love, but more specifically, I like Buckley. But the problem is, I don't know if Buck can take this. They're not, the betting odds are not too separated between the two. And Sean Brady is the favorite. Now, I love Buckley. And I wanted Buckley to win against Usman the last time they fought, which was last year. And that was actually the last time Joaquin has fought in general. Well, I guess he had the RAF match, but that doesn't count. Which was June of 2025. So it's damn near been a year since we've seen Buckley fight. But he was on a nice win streak. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fight win streak. Ended the year off in 2024 with a nice win over Colby Covington. And since then, we haven't seen Colby Covington back. But he lost to Kamaru Usman. And now he's back to fight another dominant wrestler, i.e. Sean Brady. And Sean Brady had that beautiful win over Leon Edwards. He was on a nice streak himself, aside from Bilal. And then UFC 322, again, my favorite card last year. He got knocked out round 1 to Michael Morales. And this is the first time we've seen. So both these guys are coming off a loss. You know, I would like to go in favor of Joaquin, but Sean Brady's submission game is pretty good. So because of that reason, I'm going to have to go for Sean Brady. Now, I'd be very happy if Buckley won, but I don't think it will. Now, again, another tough pick. Volkov versus Cortes-Acosta. Cortes-Acosta has been on a dominant run. Fought 6 times. Or maybe it was 5. 5 or 6 times in 2025. Let's take a look here. 2025. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Yeah, 5 times in 2025. He fought at the beginning of the year here, 2026. So basically, like, just back to back to back to back. Lost to Sergey, but, you know, 5 of his last 6 fights he's won. I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 8 of his last 9 fights he's won. He's pretty friggin' good, dude. And technically speaking, he did not win against Ante Delia. That was the weirdest fight ever. Ante did win, but then they made them fight again. It was a whole thing. Okay, but then we got Alexander Volkov. Just a fucking legend. Been in the sport for quite a while now. Since 2016. The dude has only lost to other legends. Ciryl Gane, Tom Aspinall, Curtis Blades, and Derek Lewis. Ton of experience. How old is he? He's 37. He's getting up there in age. How old is Waldo? 34. This was a tough one for me. I want to go for Waldo just because I like the Salsa Boy train. But I think I went for... See, Volkov is also the favorite. I went for Volkov as well, so... But again, it could go either way. Van versus Taira. If you don't know, the last time Van fought was for the title against Alexander Pantoja. And let's just look at Alexander first quick here. So Alexander, fucking legend as well, was about to become one of the flyweight greats. He was on a 4 title defense streak. 7 fight win streak overall. But when he faced Joshua Van back in December of last year, there was a freak accident as he was falling backward and popped his elbow out of socket, and they had to stop the fight. So Joshua Van did take the belt, and this is the first time Joshua has fought since then. And Joshua Van, since coming into the UFC, has only ever lost to Charles Johnson, as crazy enough as that is to believe. Currently on a 6-fight win streak. Had that crazy fucking war with Brandon Royval on UFC 317. Amazing fight. The most significant strikes thrown ever, or at least in the flyweight division. But Tatsuro Taira, 18-1. The dude has only ever lost to Brandon Royval. And look at his record. Just clean. Okay? Now Tatsuro Taira knows how to submit, and he usually submits. That's his go-to. Joshua Van's not good at that shit. I mean, he can do it, but he likes to knock people out. Now, they're both amazing fighters, very good fighters. So between the two of them, you kind of want to go for Van, but by looking at the way they fight, I could see Tatsuro Taira taking this and being the first Japanese champion ever in the UFC. which would be fantastic. And then, of course, we got Chimaev and Strickland. We don't got to go over their stats. We've seen that 100 times, and I talked about it already. We know Chimaev's undefeated. He is the bigger favorite here, minus 550. But Sean Strickland has more experience. Great takedown defense. Knows how to handle Chimaev to an extent, I guess. Sean Strickland could win. I want Sean Strickland to win. Do I think he's going to win? No, I don't. So I'm going to have to go for Chimaev. And that's my entire picks. Fights you should absolutely look out for are number 2, Sirsaikaev versus Santos. Number 6, Dawson versus Rebecki. Number 7, Alvarez versus Amosov. Number 8, Gaethje versus Diaz. Number 10 potentially could be good, or it could be really boring. Brady versus Buckley. Number 11 might be okay. Volkov versus Cortes-Acosta. And, of course, the co-main and main. Usually bangers. Number 9 could be great. Honestly, this whole card is pretty stacked. Maybe Jim Miller will surprise us. I don't know. But even number 3 and number 1, who knows what's going to happen? We could get a big surprise there as well. But anyway, again, if you want this fight prediction sheet, it is free. Click the link in the description or in my bio to download it and print it off. Make your fight predictions. Print off as many of these sheets as you want. Hand them out to your friends and family throughout the night. Make everyone feel more involved and have more fun making fight predictions. These sheets are easy to use, and people who don't even have experience with the UFC or MMA in general can utilize these sheets easily. And, with that being said, that's it for this episode of the DynamiteGizmo Podcast. This was the UFC 328 Countdown Edition, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you do, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Subscribing is the most important thing. Just go ahead and subscribe. Don't be shy. And be sure to watch the fights these weekends. You don't want to miss it. Bye.